So we'll be unboxing the space grey 13-inch MacBook Pro. It's got an i5 quad-core 1.4 GHz processor. It also has 8 GB of RAM and a 512 GB SSD. It comes with the Touch Bar 2020, and this is the entry model from Apple currently on their website. So it's going for around about £1,200, and in dollars maybe around $1,200, $1,300, and it's their basic entry model. So let's take a look at unboxing this device and seeing what's inside. So we've got rid of the plastic wrapping. Now let's just remove the top of the box, or the top of the packaging box. One thing you can be guaranteed with Apple's devices is they're always consistent with their packaging. It's always very sleek, very neat, and everything is very well presented. So that's definitely one thing I can say about Apple that's really, really efficient and really good. It's the way they package things is always really simple and very well neatly presented, so the customer never has too many unpackaging to do. So taking the top of the cover off, or the box, very simple, and here we are. So if we remove the device, first thing we're presented with is the MacBook Pro itself. There we are, the space grey 13-inch model. Right, just put that aside. If we go into the box, as you can see, as I said, very, very sleek, very simple, very consistent. They're always consistent from all of their packaging. Historically, they've always been very simplistic in their way of packaging. As you can see straight away, we get our USB-C charging cable. Now you can use this to charge the device as well as transfer data to and from the device. So it's always important to make sure you keep this very well looked after and very well preserved. You can get these fairly cheap nowadays online, but you want to keep your original USB-C cable, just because it's always good to make sure you've got the original one that came with your device. The good thing about this is Apple have given you a very good length in terms of the length. I'm not sure exactly how long this is, but I think it's over a meter, maybe around a meter or maybe over. I'm not sure, I haven't opened it yet. But yeah, that's your charging cable. Inside you've got your little booklet designed by Apple in California. So with the booklet, you take that out, and behind that we get our charger and the plug that goes into the wall socket. So with regards to the booklet, I think you just get your basic warranty information or guarantee information, as well as your quick user guide booklet. So you've got that, a very quick user guide booklet, some stuff about guarantee and warranty, as well as the Apple logo, which they've always added into their devices. So whenever you purchase a new MacBook or an iMac or a new MacBook computer, you always get the logo, the stickers with it. It's always been consistent. I'm not sure where you'd want to stick these, but yeah, there you go. You get your stickers with that. So let me just put this aside. I'll put all of that aside. And again, yep, so we've just got the charger itself. This one is let me just remove the wrapping. Let's see what this is. Oh, actually I don't need to, I can see it from here. So it's the 61 watt USB-C power adapter. So this is 61 watt. That's for the 13-inch model. As for the device itself, as you can see, this is the space grey version. I think there are two versions, the silver and the space grey. I prefer the space grey just because it's got that metallic look. Let's just take off this wrapper here. Remove this wrapping. In terms of the 13-inch model, it's fairly light. So I mean, it's obviously not as light as the MacBook Air, but it is fairly light. It's about 1.4 kilograms in weight. It's the kind of device you can easily slip into your rucksack, or just put in a case and just carry it around. If you want something lighter, then it's probably worth going for the MacBook Air. But for me, to be honest, this is the perfect size. It doesn't really cause too much strain on when you're carrying it around on your back, or even on the arms if you're just carrying it around in your hand. So it's the perfect size, the 13-inch MacBook Pro. In terms of the device itself, if we just open it up and just remove this sheet, again, first thing it does is it turns on. I haven't connected the charger yet, but because it's got an SSD hard drive, it's fairly quick. So booting times are very, very quick nowadays with most devices with SSDs. See, the trackpad for the 13-inch model is very wide, which is quite good. Gives you plenty of room to move around and do your hand gestures. The keyboard, again, one of my favorite things, they've changed back, if you like. So what they've done is they've gone back to their rubbery type of keyboards, whereas the model before this was the flat keyboards, and they had that more plasticky feel. So when you touched it, you didn't really know if you'd hit the key or not. I prefer the keyboards that stick out and a bit more rubbery, so when you hit the button, you actually know you've touched the button. Going over to the touch bar, as you can see, they've separated the touch bar. You've got the escape button separate by itself, and you've also got the power button across here, just over here, and that's also separate by itself. Coming over to the operating system, as you can see, it comes with OS Catalina built in. If I just go to About This Mac, as you can see, this particular model, as I said, it's the 13-inch 2020, and it's the 1.4 GHz quad-core Intel i5 processor, 8 GB of RAM, the Intel Iris Plus graphics card, and the storage is 512. Let's go to storage. It's got the 512 GB SSD coming up as 500 GB there. So yeah, it's a fairly decent device for their entry level. If you want a more powerful one, you can boost up the specs to 16 GB of RAM, and also increase the flash drive, the SSD, to 1 TB. I think you can go beyond that as well, but you can check on their website, and obviously the more you boost it up, the more it costs. Now, in terms of the ports on the device itself, if we just turn this around, what you'll see is there are two USB-C, or what they call Thunderbolt 3 ports, and on the other side, if we just flip it around, what we have is the audio jack, just for your headphones or your speakers. That is it with the 13-inch model. If you go for the larger models, the 15-inch or the 16-inch models, you obviously get larger speakers on the device itself, and you also get another two USB-C ports. The one negative thing about Apple historically is that they've been reducing the number of ports connected to devices. So now, if I want to connect let's just turn this around to the side. If I want to connect an Ethernet cable and plug into my network, I can't do that unless I go and buy a separate adapter. If I want to connect this to my TV and my through HDMI, I have to buy a separate HDMI to Thunderbolt C adapter and connect it. If I want to plug in a USB stick, if I want to just plug in something straightforward, as simple as a USB stick, then again, I have to go and buy myself a USB-C to USB adapter. So looks like Apple have been going with the business model of removing as many ports as possible, which is good for, simplicity, I guess, and design. But in terms of user experience, you now have to buy yourself more and more adapters. So you might have to buy one of those multiple adapters that have the USB, the Ethernet, the HDMI ports all in one. So one of those all-in-one adapters that you can find online on Amazon or on eBay, which is, for me, to be honest, it's an inconvenience, because if you had the ports available, then you could just plug into it. There are many Windows-based devices that are as slim as the MacBooks, but also have the USB ports as well as the Ethernet ports and HDMI ports still attached to them. So I think Apple really, in my opinion, should be working on that and improving that. It's one of the things that I think they can definitely improve on, rather than try and sell people more and more adapters by reducing the number of ports available on their devices. Other than that, I can't really fault the MacBook devices. They are very, very good, very simple to use. User experience, I mean, as a user, you can really get used to the Apple devices very, very easily and very quickly. Installing applications are very simple. You just go to your app store, find what you want, and download it, and it installs. Other than that, most Windows-based applications you can find on Apple nowadays, so you can any sort of apps that you were used to using on Windows, you can also use on your Mac devices. So they are very good in that sense, in terms of compatibility with software and other software, other vendor software and things like that. But in terms of using the device itself and connecting the adapters, I think that's the only downside I can find to it. Yes, everything's moving to USB-C. Yes, we want to try and get to sort of more input-output speeds through these particular ports that have been invented. But how many adapters can you carry around on you? And how many adapters do you want to keep in your rucksack or your bag or whatever? It's for me, that's the only downside on the MacBook devices. Other than that, I can't fault the Apple devices. They are fantastic devices, quite pricey, but they're worth the price because their prices don't drop quite rapidly. So over the years, if you bought a Windows-based device, you'd find that the cost of the device would drop dramatically, whereas Apple devices tend to maintain their costs. Tend to maintain their prices. So you can always, if you kept it for a number of years and you sold your device on, you can always get a fairly good price for it at the end of its life cycle. So here's just a quick comparison between the newer 2020 MacBook Pro, even though it's a 13-inch, and the older 2017 MacBook Pros. So this one's a 2017. It's an i7. It's as you can see, it's got, because it's bigger, obviously the speakers are bigger, trackpad is bigger, and so forth. But what I wanted to show you was the keyboards themselves. So if you look at this keyboard here on the 2017 model, if I press it, it's got a very plasticky feeling to it, right? So this is the keyboard that I myself didn't really like too much. Coming over to the 2020 model, if you press the key, sound is much different. You feel that you are pressing the key, whereas the 2017, very plasticky, very light. Whereas this one, you know you're pressing it, there's more of a bounce to it. It's a much better feel for the fingers. I don't know, you know, I guess everyone's got their own preference, but this model has definitely got a much better keyboard, and they've gone back to the older sort of style keyboards, which I really prefer, the rubbery ones that you can touch and you know you've touched the key when you hit it. Again, the trackpad, where we can compare again, the escape button, as you can see, it's blended into the trackpad. Coming over to the 2020 model, you can see it's an actual button by itself. It's no longer part of the trackpad. So again, whether you prefer that or not, didn't really bother me too much. Whether they blended it in or kept it separate, for me it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But you know, that's one thing. Again, on the trackpad here on the 2020 model, you can see the power button is an actual button itself, whereas here on the 2017 model, it's just one flat touchpad, and the power button is blended into here. I'm not sure if you can actually see, there's a little gap, but it's a more plasticky, again, power button. So some minor adjustments in terms of keyboard layout. I prefer the 2020 layout, and they've gone back to the old style Apple keyboard, and I prefer that. You might prefer the old, sorry, not the old one, now it's old, but the 2017 model style keyboard, which is flat, plasticky. Maybe you were good at touch typing and you know it didn't really bother you too much. But that is the only, I guess, the main differences that I had noticed. That's it from me, guys, in terms of reviewing the Space Gray 13-inch MacBook Pro 2020 model, with a slight comparison in terms of keyboard and touch bar to the 2017 model. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe and share.